Gauteng has emerged as the most expensive province in South Africa to buy groceries. This is according to data from the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group. Now, the group tracks the cost of a household food basket across different regions, and its October 2024 report offers valuable insights. Now, this revelation highlights stark provincial disparities in food costs, with Johannesburg standing out as the priciest city. Mervyn Abrahams is the Program Director of the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group, and he joins us to share a little bit more about the key data from the Household Affordability Index. Mervyn, thanks for joining us again. So, all right, so you talk about Gauteng being the most expensive to buy groceries. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about this.
So, Leanne, first, good morning, and good morning to all your viewers. Just to give a bit of a background, the overarching average of the basket for the month of November increased by about 12 Rand, which is a 0.2%. And year on year, the basket has increased by 46 Rand, which is a 0.9%. So I think the first thing we need to say before we go to Johannesburg is that food prices are cooling. And particularly when we're looking at the year to year, because now it's about 1% higher than it was a year ago, but about 6 months ago, it was about 6% higher. So we have seen decreases. However, there are fluctuations in between provinces, and that depends really on specific kinds of foods. So for instance, when we look at tinned pilchards, for instance, Gauteng is by far the most expensive for tinned pilchards. When we look, for instance, at canned beans, then Gauteng is also, of course, the most expensive. And some of this has to do with where that specific food is being produced in the country and the logistic costs it takes in order to transport that food from, say, tinned pilchards from the Cape all the way to Johannesburg. And if you include the petrol cost, then of course that increases the price of that specific food.
That's crazy. You would think that throughout the country you would have similar prices for set products, but that's not the case.
No, as I say, a lot depends on logistics and exactly where that specific food is being produced. I've just been on the N3, and if you see the trucks, our food system is closely connected to our road system. And that means that we are usually very exposed to petrol prices, to increases in transport insurance, in waiting time on the roads, at ports, etc. So all of that is factored into the price, which means that if we can get our infrastructure better sorted, then really food prices should be coming down as well.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. It should be, but that's never the case. But we saw the recent Consumer Price Index, that's the CPI data from Statistics South Africa, that showed food inflation had peaked at 5.1 in June 2024 and then starts slowing, which offers a little bit of relief. But, why is there still this persistent strain on household budgets in urban areas like Johannesburg, where these food prices are higher than the national average? And is there anything we can do about this?
So you're absolutely correct, Leanne. Of course, food prices have cooled, as I said at the beginning. I mean, our basket is now 1% higher, and about 3-4 months ago, it was 6% higher. The issue really is affordability. South Africans are net buyers of food. And of course, that means that we exchange the food we want with the money we have in our pocket. And that's where the crunch is, that South Africans, in terms of wages and incomes and other household expenses, are just way too high. Yeah. For instance, if I could give you an example of the national minimum wage, for example, this month the national minimum wage would bring in something in the region of 4,600. And from that, about 1,600 will be spent on transport, and about 1,042 on electricity. So that would leave a household with something like just over 1,000 rand. And if you take that per capita for 4 people in a household, then that translates into something like 500 rand, which is way below the food poverty line. So that is where the nub is, and that is why consumers are not experiencing this downward trend in inflation, which our figures are indicating.
Yeah, which is, it's a great worry. Forgive me if you've mentioned this already, but I just want to get an idea, because I know you've mentioned that you track 44 basic foods from 47 supermarkets and 32 butcheries. This is how you do it. But how much is that difference we're talking about? Like how much is the food basket, and how much more is it in Joburg? And perhaps you can give us an indication of where the cheapest food basket is.
So the average cost, so what we do is we collect the prices in all the major metro cities, and then of course we average it out. And so the average cost of the basket this month is 5,361.
Sure.
Whilst in Johannesburg it's somewhere between 5,500.
Okay.
Now, it really is month on month we see fluctuations. And the trend doesn't continue for too long. So 2 months ago, Cape Town was the most expensive and Johannesburg was cheaper. And this month it's come out more expensive in Johannesburg. So there are different factors that drive that. I've already mentioned, logistics costs and transport. But there are also factors that seems to be under the radar. And that is that when it comes to November and December, so the festive season, we often see certain foods, particularly meat, increasing in price. And that has a factor on an area such as Johannesburg versus an area such as Springbok, because meat is closer to Springbok than they are to Johannesburg.
Yeah, indeed they are. So what I'm finding interesting is when we dig a little bit deeper into which food items have actually increased and which have decreased. So we're seeing that of the 44 food items, 13 have seen decreases, which is good news. And vegetables are the ones that are looking better. Onions and butternut leading the way down. Onions gone down 34% and butternut 32%. That's at least something, but I don't know if we're calling these staple food items, are we? I mean, this is, in many people's lives, these are luxuries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Onions would be a staple because, you need it to cook a pot of stew, which is the most eaten type of food in South Africa. But we have seen vegetable prices come down. Now, Leanne, that's also because of the seasonality of fresh produce. So we have seen the summer crop arriving in the markets, and of course that has brought prices down. That in itself is also a little bit of a risk.
Sure.
Because once we enter into winter and we don't have some of these vegetables readily available, we then often see the prices increase.
Yeah.
But of course it is good news when the prices come down, and particularly for vegetables, because it's one of those items that we really want families to buy because of its nutritional value.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, tomatoes up 32%, sugar beans up 30%, eggs up 21%. This is tough. It's really, really tough out there. But I know you monitor it, and I'm so glad that you gave us the opportunity to chat to you, Mervyn Abrahams. If you'd like to read it, please do take a look. It's out there. If you just look for the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group, you'll be able to read all about these price increases and what that food basket costs. Mervyn always availing himself to us to have a chat. Thanks so much.